you're on the right track. If you know that something is frustrating and bugging you, and that you're not okay with people being oppressed because they don't have a high lot in life, they're not highly educated perhaps, even though the job they do is absolutely indispensable, a farm worker, picking your strawberries and your lettuce, things that they haven't developed machines to do yet. All these people are important. So coupled with sound currency giving you a rising tide of prosperity, lifting everybody's ship, what you also have happening simultaneously, concurrently with that scenario, is the work week, a continually diminishing work week. This is the product of being inventive, as humans are. It's a very natural trait to be creative, to be imaginative, and to invent ways to do things easier, to not only meet the needs that we have as human beings, as creatures that depend on fresh air and water and food and shelter for our happiness, but we want to go beyond those things. Once we have those things and we have a semblance of security in this world, in this life, as human beings walking on the face of the earth, we aspire to finding ways to recreate. Toys. We want to look what we did with computers. Okay, this was a natural thing for a human being to bring the internet into fruition, to bring automobiles and jet airplanes and cameras like I'm using here. Okay, this was a natural offshoot of the intelligence God gave us. When you meet people in life and they are, really nice people. Have you ever met somebody and right off the bat you said, man, we're friends. I mean, we just talked for 5 minutes, but I think I just met somebody that would do anything for me. You probably did. There are people like that, and it's a beautiful thing. But instead of giving that person the adulation, the accolades for being, oh, you're so good, and like Jesus talked, when they tried to call him good, he pointed to God. He said, only God is good, because all good things come from God. So when somebody is nice to you, kind to you, generous, loving, supportive, then you need to thank God for putting those things in that person's heart. And that person likely is thanking God for putting those good things in their heart, and they accepted that challenge to be a decent, upright, noble, honorable human being, to really care. Caring isn't so much, some person's a loving person and they're happy and smiling all the time. But, isn't caring really being passionate, really seeing the injustice, the evil woes of our society, and saying, hey, it may not be affecting me directly, but as a loving, caring human being, I must stand up in behalf of the downtrodden, in behalf of the poor and the oppressed. All of them, folks. Back to supply and demand, but, instinctively, human beings can understand supply and demand principles. It's like this. You say, well, I know what would get my prices down if there was less demand. Let's say you're renting an apartment. You think, well, there's just too much demand. That's what the media keeps saying. That's what's driving up my price. Like in San Francisco, everybody's complaining about Twitter moving into town, and it's jacking up everybody's rent, because these are well-paid people from Twitter, okay? But a lot of the natives and the people endemic to the city that have been living there for decades, perhaps, many years, they're not making as much money as these people. And so there becomes this bidding war, the competition, the highest bidder. So they create artificial scarcity. There's really no supply and demand issue. It's not like there's a shortage. They're raising people's rents because they can. San Francisco could easily end all its homelessness tomorrow, but it's political. It's about money. And the governments are intimately involved in this corruption because they endorse high housing costs too, because of the higher tax base. So they're all creating the problems, the conditions whereby welfare is needed. Read the Cloward and Piven strategy. They know they're creating the problems. Poverty induces things like crime, and they want that chaos. They want people in fear. Or am I going to get mugged? I mean, am I going to get robbed at my grocery store? They like that. Okay, this is the way they maintain control, because they are they are rendered relevant. Oh, we've got a big problem over here. We got to have SWAT and DEA go bust down the doors of this guy that's selling drugs, the controlled substances. It's okay for the pharmacy as long as, your doctor said it's okay. It's all right if they hand out these same drugs like candy, but they're going to go bust down the drugs of some poor bastard. And, oh, we're so important. We're so relevant. My job is necessary. My job's important. You see law enforcement complaining about that with the loosening of the cannabis laws in this country, and they're crying. It's job security for them and their colleagues. Yes, and there's a lot of nepotism in government agencies because they know when the hiring's taking place. They tell their kids. So it's hand-me-down government jobs and that sort of thing that's going on. We just have to understand how deep the corruption runs and how it affects all of us, and help other people to see it in their own lives and jump ship and say, I'm going to the side of light. I'm going to serve justice and righteousness and mercy and all good things. I'm going to be a friend to God and humanity. And you know what? When the chips are down, if it does come to a bloody revolution, I know which side I'm on. I'm on the side of the people and the people's will and the will of these elitist hypocrites like the Bilderberger group, these kind. Not everybody in there. Again, not everybody in the government is evil, okay? There's decent people in our government and in high places, thank God. But you know what? All you need is a handful of rascals to cause the problems in key places. And one of those key places is the money printing industry. That's what it is, folks. All these people are supposed to do is get a tiny amount for what they do in service by printing and coining the money. They're not supposed to be creating debt for us and deciding arbitrarily what the direction of our economic policies are going to be. We're going to go in debt to China? Give me a break. Well, we got all these people getting fabulously wealthy. We got more and more billionaires, more and more people worth hundreds of millions. And the bottom class, the people that with all the weight on their shoulders that are really keeping, the fabric of society together, these are the glue that hold the fabric of society together. People at the very bottom, the working class people, the ones that are really getting cheated the most and are really being hurt the most by the tyranny out there. And it just breaks my heart. It just makes me sick to my stomach. People have to understand the relationship between rights and entitlements, because in a very large way, these two words are synonymous. So an entitlement, understanding you are entitled to certain things, is not communist or socialist belief, but we're entitled to justice. This is why I fight for justice. I'm entitled to the same things I offer others. If I offer goodwill to others, I am entitled to have goodwill back. And if I don't get it, I have a right to speak out. I have an obligation to speak out. There's a point where rights turn into obligations. You have an obligation to your children to seek happiness if you are ever to attain it. And if things are not to get worse and worse for future generations, we all have to stand up in unison and demand justice, because nobody's going to hand it out to you. And things will continue and to get worse and worse in this country, in America, and all over this world until people demand justice. And, I try to tell people, keep your chin up, because good always ends up prevailing. These people are getting away with a lot. It's horrible. They're killing people. It really is genocide through economic tyranny, because people do die in a sundry myriad of ways. People die from economic oppression. Okay? Homicides, suicides, starvation, death from filthy water, death from a lack of shelter, the elements get you. There's a million ways. The crime, the deaths from crime, the deaths from war, because economic tyranny creates the conditions for warfare. One group doesn't want to be subjugated by another. And when the chips are down, it always comes down to money. Money is the controlling factor. So these people that control the money policies are controlling warfare, because the troops work, they do their job for money. Okay? And, that's the sad state of affairs. We all need to wake up to these realities that these oppressors, these Bilderberger types, these elitist hypocrites, are a murder gaggle of thugs. And they need problems. If the problems go away, if we start solving problems, then these people are going to be, it's like in Wizard of Oz when, the witch got water spilled on her. That's what would happen to these people if the people become empowered. So, the only solution I really have, short of the return of Jesus, which this likely is all going to take, it's going to all end up, happening just like the Bible says, this huge sea change to beat the band, unprecedented, like never before in history. This big end of the age change is coming. I firmly believe it's all coming. And God is trying to be gentle with us. But we've got to understand, we human beings are made in the image and likeness of God. We are God's hands and feet on the ground, eyes and ears. It's not about religion. It's a cosmic thing. It's a cosmic understanding and relationship. And that we have to be willing to die for the cause of setting the captives free. And how do the captives get free? They get set free financially. And I want to digress to when I was talking about a community as a collective. And it's like having all this fresh, clean water out there in the community, okay, that we've all worked for to ensure that we have this supply, this great abundance for everybody, way more than everybody needs to drink, to live. And denying certain people because they don't have the magic elixir. That's really the same thing as denying people housing when you've got plenty. Because there is more vacant housing, there is an excess of housing in this country than ever before in history. There's more, because the workers have done a good job. They don't mind working. People like to work. They want to contribute. It gives them purpose. It fulfills and gratifies an instinct, a good, benevolent, altruistic instinct all of us have to do right, to do good, to try to serve our fellow man, and to derive some joy and happiness, some fulfillment, some satisfaction, some gratification, and to get approval from the one that doles out the happiness that we can share. It's not about ego at all or vanity. It's about understanding, in fact, the contrary, that we must become less and he must become more. Always point to God as being the one that gave you the wherewithal. When you do good and when you desire to do good, that is a gift from above. And it is a gift. It's an understanding that, hey, don't believe the hype. Humanity can get along with each other. We've all just been told that we can't. Okay? That's the reality of it. And, like I said, short of the return of Jesus, the best advice I have out there is to go for the jugular vein. And the jugular vein in this situation, okay, worldwide, not just in America, is the money printers. So you've got these headquarters for these Federal Reserve banks all over the country. I think there's 7 or 12. I can't remember. I learned it in real estate class, but whatever it is. But what we need is a nonviolent, unarmed. It's guys with true courage to state, you know what? This is how it's going to be. Garnish mainstream media attention for this. Start a movement and just descend on these headquarters with an ocean of people. Once you know you've got 1 million people at each headquarter pledged to show up, first starting right, park as close to the center of the action as possible. And then, go around in concentric circles and just completely take over that entire area with the righteous and the decent people. No armaments, just completely peacefully. You just say, no, we're taking over this facility. And you could shoot us, but you're going to pay because we're unarmed. But we're telling you, we, the people, are the boss. Okay? We have just as much right to the copyright of that currency as Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, or anybody else out there. That's our right. That's our entitlement to control it. I'm not doing this maybe for me. Maybe it's a lost hope for my generation. I'm doing it for my children and their children's children. But we're taking over this money printing operation.